I'm sorry, but Court 3 is reserved for members only.
I booked this court yesterday. Judge Donovan, 2 p.m. lesson.
There must be some mistake. You don't look like our typical member.
What exactly does your typical member look like?
You know what I mean? This is an exclusive club.
Exclusive and expensive, which is why my 7-figure investment was so valuable to your board.
Tennis professional Brad Morrison had worked at Virginia's most exclusive country clubs for 8 years, building a reputation among the state's elite for his technical expertise and discretion. At 34, he commanded premium rates for private lessons with senators' wives, corporate executives, and federal judges who valued both his coaching ability and his understanding that what happened on the courts stayed on the courts. But on this sunny Tuesday afternoon at Grandview Country Club, Morrison was about to make the most expensive mistake of his career. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story, let me ask you something. Where in the world are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button. The stories we cover expose the truth about how discrimination operates in America's most exclusive spaces. Your support ensures these important stories reach the people who need to hear them. Grandview Country Club sits on 200 acres of pristine Virginia countryside, 30 minutes from Washington, D.C. The membership fees start at $50,000 annually, with initiation costs reaching 6 figures. The tennis facilities feature 12 championship courts, each maintained to professional tournament standards. The clubhouse, renovated in 2019, with $8 million in member investments, exemplifies old money elegance with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and oil paintings of past club presidents dating back to 1923. Judge Clara Donovan had been a federal judge for the Eastern District of Virginia for 12 years. At 51, she presided over cases ranging from complex civil rights violations to high-profile criminal trials. Her judicial opinions were frequently cited by appellate courts for their thoroughness and legal reasoning. The legal community knew her as someone who ran her courtroom with dignity and demanded respect for all participants, regardless of their background. 6 years earlier, Donovan had joined Grandview after being recruited by fellow members who recognized her professional stature. 3 years ago, when the club faced financial difficulties during the pandemic, she had been among 5 members who provided emergency funding to prevent bankruptcy. Her $1.8 million investment had helped finance the clubhouse renovation and court improvements that made Grandview the crown jewel of Virginia's country club scene. That Tuesday, Donovan had left federal court early to make her 2 p.m. tennis lesson. She wore her favorite red tennis polo and white skirt, her tennis bag slung over her shoulder as she walked toward Court 3. She'd been taking weekly lessons with Morrison for 6 months, working to improve her serve and backhand. Their lessons were scheduled the same time every week, and she'd confirmed yesterday's appointment with the pro shop. Morrison was adjusting the net tension when he saw Donovan approaching. In his 8 years at exclusive clubs, he developed what he considered a keen eye for spotting people who didn't belong. He saw a black woman in tennis attire and immediately assumed she was lost, confused, or attempting to use facilities without authorization. "I'm sorry, but Court 3 is reserved for members only," Morrison said, stepping between Donovan and the court entrance. Donovan stopped, her tennis bag still on her shoulder, and looked at Morrison with the measured patience of someone accustomed to dealing with difficult people. "I booked this court yesterday. Judge Donovan, 2 p.m. lesson." Morrison's expression didn't change. He'd heard various excuses from people trying to use facilities without permission, and this seemed like another attempt to gain unauthorized access. "There must be some mistake. You don't look like our typical member." The phrase hit Donovan like a physical blow. She'd heard variations of it her entire career. The polite way people questioned her legitimacy in spaces where her education, accomplishments, and financial resources clearly qualified her to be. What exactly does your typical member look like? Reese included Cleese Target. Morrison realized he'd said something problematic, but his pride prevented him from backing down. "You know what I mean. This is an exclusive club." Donovan's voice remained calm, but carried the authority of someone who'd spent 12 years commanding federal courtrooms, exclusive and expensive, which is why my 7-figure investment was so valuable to your board. Morrison blinked, processing what he'd just heard. Investment? 7 figures? This didn't fit his assumptions about who this woman was, or why she was here. But rather than checking his reservation system, or calling the pro shop to verify, Morrison doubled down on his initial judgment. "Ma'am, I don't know what game you're trying to play, but I need you to leave this area immediately." These courts are for paying members only. I am a paying member, Donovan replied, her patience wearing thin. I've been a member for 6 years and an investor for 3. If you check your computer system, you'll see my weekly reservation for Court 3 every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Morrison pulled out his phone, not to check the reservation system, but to call security. In his mind, this woman's persistence and detailed knowledge of club procedures only confirmed that she was running some kind of sophisticated scam. Security? This is Brad, at Court 3. I have a situation here. Donovan watched Morrison make the call and felt the familiar exhaustion of being black in spaces where her presence was automatically questioned. She'd faced skepticism in law school, during her judicial confirmation hearings, and countless times throughout her career. But she'd never expected it at a club where her own money had helped fund the facilities. Officer, you're making a serious mistake, Donovan said, her judicial training keeping her voice controlled even as anger built inside her. I strongly suggest you verify my membership before this situation escalates further. Morrison ended his call and crossed his arms. Security will sort this out. If you're really a member, you'll have no problem proving it to them. Other members on adjacent courts had begun to notice the commotion. A couple paused their match to watch the confrontation unfold. A woman leaving the pro shop slowed her pace to observe. Word was already spreading through the club that something unusual was happening at Court 3. Donovan stood her ground, her tennis bag still on her shoulder, her reservation confirmed, her membership dues current, her investment in the club documented in official records. Everything about her presence was legitimate and legal. But to Brad Morrison, none of that mattered, because his assumptions about who belonged at Grandview were stronger than facts, evidence, or basic professional courtesy. Within minutes, security would arrive, and the situation would escalate beyond anything Morrison could have imagined. He thought he was protecting an exclusive club from an unwanted intruder. Instead, he was about to humiliate a federal judge who owned a significant stake in the very institution he claimed to protect. Security guard Gregory Hale arrived at Court 3 within 4 minutes of Morrison's call. At 42, Hale had worked security at various upscale establishments throughout Virginia for 15 years. He developed a reputation for being thorough, professional, and protective of exclusive venues' atmospheres. But like Morrison, Hale's definition of who belonged in elite spaces had been shaped by unconscious biases that he'd never examined or challenged. Hale approached the situation with the confidence of someone who'd handled hundreds of similar incidents. In his experience, when staff called about unauthorized individuals, they were usually right. He saw Morrison standing defensively near the court entrance, and a well-dressed black woman holding a tennis bag. And his mind immediately categorized the scene as a trespassing situation requiring resolution. What seems to be the problem here? Hale asked, directing his attention to Morrison rather than Donovan. Morrison felt vindicated by security's arrival. Insisting she belongs here, Hale turned to Donovan, his demeanor professional but clearly skeptical. Ma'am, do you have identification and proof of membership? Judge Donovan maintained her composure, though the situation's absurdity was becoming overwhelming. I've been a member here for 6 years. My reservation for Court 3 is in your computer system, Judge. Hale's tone carried the same disbelief Morrison had shown. Can you prove that? Donovan reached into her tennis bag and pulled out her federal judicial credentials, the black leather case containing her official badge and identification card. She opened it and held it at eye level for both men to see. These are my federal credentials. Now, would you please check your reservation system to confirm my 2 p.m. lesson? Morrison glanced at the credentials but remained unconvinced. Anyone can buy fake badges online these days. Hale examined the credentials more carefully, noting the official seals and holographic security features. They appeared authentic, but his loyalty to club staff and his assumptions about the situation made him reluctant to accept what he was seeing. Ma'am, these could be counterfeit. We'll need to verify your identity through official channels. Verify my identity? Donovan's voice carried a dangerous edge. I'm a sitting federal judge carrying official Department of Justice credentials, and you're suggesting they're fake because you can't believe a black woman belongs at your tennis club? The accusation of racial profiling made both men defensive. Morrison stepped forward, his voice rising. This isn't about race. This is about club security and following proper procedures. Then follow proper procedures, Donovan replied. Check your computer system. Verify my membership. Call your manager. But stop treating me like a criminal for trying to use facilities I've paid for and helped fund. Hale pulled out his radio. I'm calling the club manager. She can sort this out. But instead of asking Donovan to wait comfortably while the situation was resolved, he positioned himself between her and the court, will be have with caster hand of Ressing Wan 7, treating her as a security threat rather than a potential victim of staff error. Club manager Elena Morales arrived 7 minutes later. At 38, she'd managed Grandview for 4 years, working her way up from assistant manager at a smaller club. She prided herself on maintaining the exclusive atmosphere that members expected and paid premium prices to enjoy. When she received Hale's call about a membership dispute, she expected to find the usual situation. Someone attempting to use facilities without authorization. End quote. Morales approached the group and immediately assessed the dynamics. Morrison and Hale stood together, presenting a united front, while a black woman in tennis attire stood alone, with her credentials still in her hand. The visual confirmed Morales' assumptions about who was causing the problem. I'm Elena Morales, club manager, she said, addressing the group but focusing primarily on the 2 staff members. What's the situation? Morrison spoke first, eager to justify his actions. This woman claims to have a reservation and membership, but I've never seen her before. She's refusing to leave the courts. Morales turned to Donovan with the practiced politeness she reserved for difficult situations. Ma'am, I understand there's been some confusion. If you could just provide proper documentation of your membership, we can resolve this quickly. Donovan held up her federal credentials again, her patience nearly exhausted. I'm Federal Judge Clara Donovan. These are my official credentials. I've been a member here for 6 years, and I have a confirmed reservation for Court 3 at 2 p.m. Instead of checking your own records, your staff has spent 15 minutes questioning my legitimacy and suggesting my federal badge is counterfeit. Morales examined the credentials briefly, but her loyalty to her staff and her assumptions about the situation prevented her from taking them seriously. These appear to be official, but we still need to verify your membership status through our internal system. Then verify it, Donovan said. But do it quickly, because every minute you delay is another minute of discrimination that's being documented. The word discrimination made Morales defensive. Ma'am, we're simply following security procedures. This isn't about discrimination, isn't it? Donovan's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to cross-examining witnesses and exposing contradictions. Your staff saw a black woman at the tennis courts and immediately assumed I didn't belong here. When I showed federal credentials, they called them fake. When I mentioned my investment in this club, they ignored me. What would you call that? Morales felt the situation escalating beyond her comfort level. I don't carry my membership card for weekly lessons at a club where I've been a regular for 6 years, Donovan replied, but I'm happy to wait while you check your computer system, which should show my membership status, my account history, and my significant financial investment in this institution. Other members had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion. A couple from Court 2 approached to see what was happening. An elderly man leaving the pro shop paused to observe. Word was spreading through the club that some kind of confrontation was taking place at Court 3. Morales realized the situation was becoming a public spectacle, which was exactly what exclusive clubs tried to avoid. Ma'am, perhaps we could continue this conversation in my office, away from the courts. No, Donovan said firmly. I have a confirmed reservation for this court at this time. I've shown you federal credentials proving my identity. I've explained my membership status and investment history. The only thing preventing me from using this court is your staff's refusal to treat me with basic respect and professional courtesy. Morrison, feeling increasingly defensive, made the situation worse. Ma'am, you're being difficult and disruptive. Other members are trying to enjoy their club experience. The irony of being called disruptive by the people who were disrupting her scheduled lesson wasn't lost on Donovan. I'm being disruptive. You're the ones who approached me. You're the ones questioning my right to be here. You're the ones creating the scene instead of simply checking your reservation system. Hale stepped closer, his hand moving instinctively toward his radio. Ma'am, you need to calm down and cooperate with club management. I am cooperating, Donovan replied, her judicial training allowing her to remain controlled even as the situation became increasingly surreal. But your cooperation requires verification of information that should take 30 seconds to confirm. Morales pulled out her phone, finally deciding to check the club's reservation system. As she scrolled through the screen, her face began to change. The color drained from her cheeks as she found Donovan's name in the membership database, her weekly recurring reservation for Court 3, and her account status showing 6 years of membership and a $1.8 million investment in the club's renovation and expansion. "Oh God," Morales whispered, staring at her phone screen. Morrison noticed her expression. "What is it?" Morales looked up at Judge Donovan with growing horror as the magnitude of their mistake became clear. The silence that followed Morales' realization was deafening. "What do you mean she's telling the truth?" Morrison asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Morales stared at her phone screen, scrolling through Judge Donovan's membership profile. 6 years of membership. Weekly tennis lessons every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Account current. And, she paused, her voice catching, a $1.8 million investment in our 2019 renovation project. Hale felt his stomach drop. Investment? She helped fund the clubhouse renovation, the court improvements, everything. Morales continued reading. She's listed as one of 5 emergency investors who prevented the club from bankruptcy during COVID. Morrison's face went pale. "But I've never seen her before." "Because you've only worked here 6 months, came a sharp voice from behind them. Everyone turned to see Victoria Price approaching, a distinguished woman in her 70s who'd been a Grandview member for over 20 years. She'd been watching the commotion from the clubhouse terrace and decided to intervene when she recognized what was happening. "Mrs. Price," Morales stammered, recognizing one of the club's most influential members. "Judge Donovan," Price said, addressing Donovan directly with obvious respect. "I am deeply sorry for what I just witnessed. This is absolutely unacceptable." Price turned to face the 3 staff members, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being heard. "Judge Donovan has been a valued member of this club for years. She's attended our charity galas, supported our fundraising efforts, and yes, her financial investment helped save this institution when we were facing closure." Morrison felt sick. "Mrs. Price, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you didn't bother to check," Price interrupted. "You saw a black woman and assumed she didn't belong here. That's not ignorance, Mr. Morrison. That's racism." Donovan finally spoke, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "Mrs. Price, thank you for your support, but these staff members need to understand the full scope of what they've done. They've discriminated against a federal judge, questioned official Department of Justice credentials, and harassed a major investor in their own institution." Morales tried to salvage the situation. "Judge Donovan, I sincerely apologize. This was a misunderstanding." "No," Donovan cut her off. "A misunderstanding is getting the wrong court number. This was racial profiling. Your staff saw my skin color and decided I was a threat, an intruder, someone who needed to be removed. When I showed federal credentials, you called them fake." Other members had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Their shocked expressions and whispered conversations made clear that news of the incident was spreading rapidly through the club. Hale realized his career was likely over. "Judge Donovan, what can we do to fix this?" Donovan picked up her tennis bag, her lesson time long past. "You can start by understanding that what you've done here isn't fixable with apologies. You violated my civil rights, damaged my reputation in front of fellow members, and created a hostile environment at an institution I helped fund. This will have consequences far beyond hurt feelings." Price stepped forward. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting immediately. Judge Donovan, you deserve better than this from our club." As Donovan walked away from Court 3, leaving behind 3 staff members whose careers had just imploded, she was already planning the legal action that would cost Grandview Country Club more than they'd ever imagined. Within 2 hours of Judge Donovan leaving Court 3, Grandview Country Club was in full crisis mode. Victoria Price had followed through on her promise, contacting board president Jonathan Reed immediately after witnessing the discrimination. Reed, a prominent Richmond attorney who understood the legal implications of what had occurred, called an emergency board meeting for that evening. The boardroom filled with concerned members, their faces reflecting the gravity of the situation. Reed opened the meeting by reading from the incident report that Morales had been forced to write, documenting every detail of the confrontation. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Reed said, his voice tense with controlled anger. A federal judge who invested $1.8 million in our club was denied access to tennis facilities, had her credentials questioned as potentially fake, and was treated as a security threat by multiple staff members. Morales sat in the corner, no longer wearing her manager's jacket. Mr. Reed. It was a communication breakdown. Morrison didn't recognize her. And, stop, Reed interrupted. There was no communication breakdown. There was racial profiling, discrimination, and harassment of a federal judicial officer. Do you understand what you've exposed this club to? Board member Margaret Chen, a corporate lawyer, pulled out her phone. Judge Donovan's colleagues are calling this a textbook case of institutional racism. Another board member, Dr. Robert Hayes, shook his head in disgust. Judge Donovan helped save this club. Her investment, along with 4 others, prevented our bankruptcy, and we repaid her by treating her like a criminal. Reed's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and looked up grimly. Judge Donovan's attorney has contacted our legal team. They're demanding immediate action regarding today's incident and suggesting we retain outside counsel specializing in civil rights violations. Morrison had been terminated within the hour of the incident, his access to club facilities revoked permanently. His reputation in Virginia's tennis community was already destroyed, as news spread among the interconnected network of country clubs and private instructors. Morales faced a more complex situation. Reed said, addressing her directly. Your employment here is suspended pending a full investigation. Given the severity of this incident, and your role in escalating rather than resolving it, termination is likely. Hale had already submitted his resignation, understanding that his security career at upscale establishments was effectively over. No exclusive venue would risk hiring someone involved in discriminating against a federal judge. Reed stood to address the full board. We're facing potential damages in the millions. Judge Donovan was humiliated in front of fellow members at a club she helped finance. The optics are catastrophic, and our legal exposure is enormous. The board voted unanimously to authorize a full settlement negotiation, implement comprehensive anti-discrimination training for all staff, and establish new protocols requiring verification before any member could be questioned or denied service. But as Reed explained to the somber room, the real damage was already done. Grandview's reputation was about to be destroyed, and Judge Donovan's lawsuit would ensure that their discrimination would become a cautionary tale for exclusive institutions nationwide. The club that had once prided itself on exclusivity was about to learn that some forms of exclusion carried devastating consequences. 18 months after that devastating Tuesday at Court 3, Judge Clara Donovan sat in her federal chambers reviewing the final settlement documents that would close one of Virginia's most expensive discrimination cases. The $5.1 million agreement represented more than money. It was a statement about the cost of institutional racism at America's most exclusive venues. Grandview Country Club's legal team had tried everything to minimize their exposure. They argued it was a simple misunderstanding, that Morrison was inexperienced, that no malicious intent existed. But federal civil rights law doesn't require malicious intent, only discriminatory impact, and Judge Donovan's treatment clearly qualified. Morrison's career in tennis instruction was permanently destroyed. His name appeared in legal databases as a defendant in civil rights violations, making him effectively unemployable in his chosen profession. Morales faced similar consequences. Her termination from Grandview included a settlement clause preventing her from managing any upscale hospitality venue. She'd moved to North Carolina, taking a significantly lower-paying position at a municipal recreation center. Her reputation in Virginia's club management circles ruined forever. Hale discovered that security work at exclusive establishments required background checks that now revealed his involvement in federal discrimination litigation. His career protecting upscale venues was over, forcing him into lower-paying retail security positions. The settlement required Grandview to implement sweeping changes. All staff now completed quarterly civil rights training conducted by federal compliance experts. New protocols required management approval before any member could be questioned or denied service. A diversity committee, including Judge Donovan herself, reviewed all policies and procedures annually. But the real impact extended far beyond Grandview. Judge Donovan's case became required reading in hospitality management programs across the country. Her experience was cited in congressional hearings about discrimination at private clubs. Legal scholars used her settlement as an example of how civil rights law applied to exclusive venues receiving tax advantages. During her deposition, Judge Donovan's testimony was particularly powerful. "I didn't invest $1.8 million in Grandview to be treated like a criminal. I joined this club to be part of a community that shared my values and respected my achievements. Instead, I discovered that no matter how successful you become, no matter how much you contribute, some people will always see your skin color first and your humanity last." The Virginia State Bar Association conducted seminars using Judge Donovan's case to educate attorneys about unconscious bias in professional settings. The National Association of Country Clubs issued new guidelines specifically referencing the Grandview incident, warning member clubs about the legal and financial consequences of discriminatory practices. Morrison attempted to rebuild his reputation by issuing public apologies and completing diversity training. But the tennis community's memory was long. His discrimination against a federal judge became a cautionary tale shared among instructors and club professionals throughout the industry. Judge Donovan used a portion of her settlement to establish a scholarship fund for minority law students, ensuring that her painful experience would help create the next generation of legal professionals equipped to fight discrimination wherever it occurred. The Grandview incident sparked broader conversations about exclusivity and inclusion at private clubs nationwide. Several institutions proactively updated their policies, trained their staff, and examined their own practices to avoid similar legal disasters. Today, Judge Donovan continues serving on the federal bench with distinction. She still plays tennis, though at a different club where her membership and investment are respected from day one. Her case remains one of the most significant civil rights settlements in Virginia history. And if you believe that accountability matters, that discrimination has real consequences, and that exclusive institutions must treat all members with equal respect regardless of race, then please hit that subscribe button. We're committed to exposing these patterns of institutional bias and celebrating when justice prevails. We're not stopping here. We'll continue documenting cases where exclusion and prejudice meet their match in courts of law and public opinion. We'll keep fighting for people who deserve to exist in spaces they've earned without having to prove they belong. This isn't just about one country club, one judge, or one settlement. It's about the society we choose to accept and the changes we demand when exclusion masquerades as tradition.